Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government. One very bad man in history made a statement. He said, "Give me your children, and you give me the world." Children are the most important asset that any country has. And I have a gentleman here, Daryl Clark, Senior Case Manager from Head Start.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about making sure those children are educated. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
Daryl, tell us about Head Start. Where did it begin? How are you involved? We're going to look at this from every aspect possible.
Sure. Head Start on a national basis started back in the 1960s. And it was started as a program for low-income families in order to put it in a way so that the families and children can essentially get a head start, as the name says to itself. Being from low-income backgrounds, a lot of these families are behind in a lot of different areas. They're impoverished. They need many different things to make their lives whole, and we're one of the programs to help them put that in place with their young children.
I think we found very early that if a parent doesn't have it, it's hard to pass on to a child, right?
I agree with that. That is correct.
And actually, I remember I didn't read my first book until I was in the 7th grade.
Wow.
I mean, my parents were not readers.
Sure.
Neither of them.
And that's one of the tenets that we put in with Hillsborough County Head Start, is that we start literacy early. Our program starts as early as 6 weeks and goes until the child goes into kindergarten. And so literacy is like one of our very first tenets, not only with the children, but also with the families as well. In fact, the month of November is our literacy month, in which that's our theme for the entire month. Is centered around just family literacy.
I guess one of the things I think of primarily as Head Start is reading.
Sure.
But Head Start is much more than just reading, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's much more. The curriculum that the children receive involves reading, it involves mathematics, it involves science, it involves social studies. However, a lot of these this type of learning happens through play, and our teachers who are wonderful throughout the county have a way about themselves in which to get this through to the children, in a way that the children can understand it. It's not one of these deals where it's a classroom setting and you got a teacher up front and a row of a classroom full of children. All of these things happen throughout the day through play.
You said something that I think is very, very important, and if you think about it, it's very true. If we're having fun, we're more likely to learn something.
I certainly agree with that, and that's actually one of the things that I like to do with the families as well, is have fun with them throughout the day. Again, these families are facing some very hard issues to face.
I would believe with the unemployment rate we have,
absolutely.
There are a lot of people that are facing some very tough energy.
Sure, and to allow the centers and our services to be welcoming enough to the families is the most important to us, and definitely for me.
Some of those families are working 2 and 3 jobs if they can find one at all.
Sure, if they can find one at all. Actually, one of the requirements of Hillsborough County Head Start is that a family must be working and are going to school. And by working we mean more than 25 hours a week.
What happens to the child whose parents aren't working? I mean, they can't find a job. Do they just get kind of left out then?
No, they don't necessarily get left out. We do have our delegate agencies, which the largest of those is the Hillsborough County School District or the school board. Those Head Start sites do not necessarily require a parent to be working and or going to school. They just need to meet the poverty guidelines.
So there's more than one kind of Head Start.
That is correct.
Maybe that's a good place. Let's explain the differences.
Sure. With Hillsborough County Head Start, it's broken down into our grantee, which is the Board of County Commissioners Head Start, which is who I represent primarily. We operate 19 Head Start centers here around the county.
And they're independent of the school system?
They're independent of the school system, and then we also have the school system Head Start sites And then we also have our other two delegate sites, which is the YMCA as well as Lutheran Services. And so with all of that, we have our center-based services, we have our school-based services, and then we also have what we call our home-based services, or our family child care homes.
So if I were watching this program today and I wasn't working, but I had a 4-year-old or 5-year, how old did it? I had the impression that Head Start started pretty young.
That is correct. We have Head Start, which is our 3 and 4-year-olds, and then we also have our what is called our Early Head Start, which serves children as young as 6 weeks up to
6 weeks.
6 weeks up to 2 years old, and then as long as they're enrolled into Early Head Start, they can transition over into Head Start once they turn 3 years old, and then remain in the program until they go on to kindergarten.
I think we've got a job ahead of us just explaining what Head Start is.
Sure.
I'm beginning to think it reminds me of that old story of the Maharaja having the blind man describe an elephant.
Sure.
Each one grabs a different part. One grabs the trunk and said, no, it's like a serpent. Somebody
Sure.
grabs the tail and says, no, it's a rope.
Sure.
Grab a leg, it says, so it's really how you come to look at Head Start.
That is correct. And you know, many times people think of Head Start as, you know, a child care service per se. And Head Start is much more than that. Head Start is actually a wraparound service. We provide services to the families as well. Within the Hillsborough County Head Start, we work with the fathers independently. We work with the mothers through our Lilies program independently, as well as we also provide courses for healthy relationships. So, and that's the time that we bring the entire family together and help them work through whatever their issues are on that front as well.
If I were a parent right now and I was working my 40 hours a week, and there's a lot of single parents out there. How single parents do it, I don't know.
Sure.
It was hard enough raising 2 children with 2 parents,
Sure.
one for each of them, than it was to raise a child by themselves.
Sure.
But if somebody were raising a child by themselves, a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, what kind of services would your department be able to serve them with?
Well, again, just the child care one is a huge, you know, based off of, let's just say, a single parent. A lot of times, you know, these parents cannot find adequate child care that is sufficient enough that will, you know, bring them in and teach them throughout the day, feed them twice a day, and give them an afternoon snack.
So there is a child care component here.
There is a child care
that
component.
people can physically go to.
Correct.
And the children will be taken care of.
That is correct. But then there's also that parent program, and that's what I was talking about with the fatherhood program, which is entitled His Involvement Matters, where we bring the men out and work with them in a group setting, typically once a month on a Saturday, and teach them and, you know, and talk to them about fatherhood types of issues, manhood issues, relationships, you know, with your spouse or girlfriend or ex or whoever. And then we also have that Lilies program as well, in which they work in the same way with the women population that we have. And then again, we have the healthy relationships portion.
There are many young men today fathering children who never had a father.
That is correct.
So they have no pattern. I've always said the only reason I was able to raise a child is I was one.
Sure.
Well, if I had no parent to teach me, I wouldn't have had any parental skills at all.
That is correct. Well, and then one of the things through Head Start, through that His Involvement Matters program, is that it's not only open to the direct fathers or the biological fathers of the children, it's also open to any man that is attached to a Head Start child. So that can be a grandparent, an uncle, an older brother,
boyfriend,
that type of thing, boyfriend, those types of things. And so through that whole group setting, a lot of times you get the younger guys looking up to the to the older guys, and there's a lot of mentoring going on. And that mentoring a lot of times starts out with our bonding retreat. We do a bonding retreat once every year, and this is the time for our core group of guys And the women have the bonding retreat going on as well. It's a time. It's a weekend deal. It's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
And just the guys go.
Just the guys go, and our male involvement staff, which we have about 10 to 15 of us. Through that session, we're doing life skills training. It's also a little fun type of activities that go on there as well. But the whole goal of the event is to bring the guys together so that they can lean on one another whenever the times get rough when they come back home.
What is life involvement skills? You mentioned that's part of the training, but what would some of the things be that they would learn in these classes?
Just as basic as how to actually raise a child, the different types of educational things that you can do with your child at home, financial skills, health, healthy relationships, how to, relationships with your spouse or your ex or whoever, keeping yourself healthy, sexual health, it could be.
Anger management.
Anger management as well.
It's not hard to understand why so many people are angry.
I agree with that.
I mean, they're sitting there, they don't have anything, not a lot of hope for anything, and no matter what they do, it just doesn't seem to be enough. I would imagine that anger is a big deal in that community.
It is a big deal within our community. Anytime that we have families that have, anger issues or any other type of mental health issues, we have mental health specialists, treatment counselors is what we call them, that can actually come in and intervene in those situations. They intervene with the children, but they can also intervene with the families at home with whatever types of crisis situations that they have.
I think it's very difficult for those of us that, well, for most of us that have been so well blessed to be able to relate to the problems that these folks are facing. I came out of a neighborhood in Detroit that was depressed, I guess, but it was really a slum. The cats were, or the rats were bigger than the cats. and I saw a lot of things when I was a kid in that, and it's always stayed with me because I remember there for the grace of God go I. Had I not moved from that neighborhood, I could have ended up in Jackson Prison like one of my best friends did.
Sure.
We have to do something to help these kids, and the only way we can do that is raise up the parents too.
That is correct. And one of the major tenets of Head Start is that we are a crime prevention program. Again, the community may look at us as simply a daycare program. However, with those different programs that I was just referring to you about, we also are a crime prevention program just by way of doing the services that we have.
Well, I was reading not too long ago, and I'm not sure the actual grade level, but it seems to me it was the 4th, that the average prisoner reads at the 4th grade level.
That is correct. Based off of some statistics that I've read in the past, prison funding is based off of children and how they're doing in the 3rd grade currently. And
really?
So that's, you can think about it. So in other words, how they're basing future prison funding is based off of 3rd grade level happenings as we speak.
Ouch. So if I give you my children, I give you the world.
Absolutely.
We've got to make sure that those kids get an education and it starts early. And they understand why. I'm a great believer in right brain, left brain. I don't know if you've probably been through that kind of training.
Sure.
And I find that most of the young people I run into, especially from the inner cities and other areas, are fairly right brain children.
Sure.
And they want to know, not because they said so, they want to know why they need to learn something.
Correct.
And I would understand that a program like this would teach the whys.
That is correct. And, a lot of what we do is based off of our staffing. A lot of people, when you first come into the building, you would notice that our staffing, it looks like what our clientele looks like. And that also helps, in terms of reaching those families.
Oh, more like me.
Absolutely, because if I can walk into a place and see someone that looks like me, walks and talks like me, may have lived, the life that I'm currently living, they can identify with me more, which will, make me feel that much more comfortable when it comes to not only just bringing my child in the center, but working with the senior case manager, such as myself, when it comes down to, when I start asking them, what are your future goals and, these types of things, it will break down those barriers just by the sheer fact of, what I look like and what types of my own background I may be able to share with these folks.
I'm sorry if you saw me sort of laugh when you were talking about that, but it reminded me that more like me idea. I was asked I'm a professional speaker and trainer, and I was asked by one of my clients to speak at a high school or a junior high that I'd gone to in Detroit that had gone downhill badly. So I said, okay, I would, because they were a big client. And when I got there, I didn't realize there was somebody else on the schedule also.
Sure.
The principal, I looked out at the audience, there's kids are sitting on the back of chairs, they're fighting, they're smoking, there's all kinds of things going on.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, here I am in my three-piece suit, walking out into this audience, and I can just hear him thinking, what has that old white guy got to say that I want to hear? And it was funny because the principal said, do you mind going second? And I said, no. I didn't realize there was a first.
Okay.
And the voice behind me said, thank you very much. And I realized it was Jesse Jackson.
Wow.
Well, Jesse went out and captured that audience. And before he was done, he gave them reasons why they ought to pay attention to what I had to say.
Sure.
He set the tone for me. But I would have never, I'd have been petrified. I was petrified to walk out there without that great introduction. So he kind of bridged that gap between what I looked like and who I was and where I'd come from, because he told the story of where I'd come from.
Absolutely.
And the kids were paying attention now.
Right.
So I think it is very important.
Sure. And again, to provide that person to look up to. And it's funny that you say that. A lot of the issues that we have in our Head Start is that there are no men in the family or absent fathers for whatever reason. And I can just tell you from my own personal experience within my centers, I oversee 2 sites of approximately about 60 kids. And a lot of them see me as a father role.
Sure.
In fact, when I walk in the building, it's, hello, Mr. Clark, and it's similar to how I get received by my own children when I get to my private home. And so they latch on. They see me as I won't say a father figure.
What
but
a
just
privilege and responsibility, though.
Yes, and so you always have to make sure, that, you're carrying yourself in a way that is, responsible for the children to look up to. Maybe
you can clarify something for me. But I have always thought that our assistance rules many times destroyed families. If the father's in the house, they don't get as much money as they get if the father's gone. Is that still true, or is that?
That is still true. However, a lot of the national programs today are starting to create ways to include the father, or the male back into the family. And again, I'd have to say that Head Start is definitely on the forefront of that, again, through this fatherhood movement. Fatherhood just doesn't, this fatherhood movement doesn't necessarily just happen here at home with Hillsborough County Head Start. It happens on a national level as far as Head Start is concerned.
I was very excited about the Million Man March.
Sure.
And the emphasis on fathers, but it seemed to melt down. It doesn't seem to be, maybe it's just that we don't look at it anymore. Maybe it's become better, and because it's become better, it's not newsworthy.
Well, in some ways it's gotten better, but in a lot of ways it hasn't. And again, if men could have a vehicle, so to speak, to become involved in the life of their child, they will. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, as far as a lot of the barriers that we have as men in the community, it just makes it hard. And so we've got to meet the needs of our family through working or bettering ourselves by going to school or whatever, what have you. A lot of that takes away from our relationship with the children.
Well, guys working 60, 70 hours a week doing hard labor.
Sure.
We're not talking about doing easy things.
Sure.
They're doing hard labor for the most part at that low rung. Comes home, he's whipped.
That's correct. There's virtually usually no time for the children. And so that's why we have the His Involvement Matters program, which we bring the children and the fathers out together on a monthly basis.
That sounds really great.
So that at least, allows them to engage their children more often than they typically would in a typical week.
All right. If somebody's watching this program and they have maybe a grandchild or even some parent watching this program and saying, I just need help. My child isn't performing the way I'd like him to perform. How do they talk with you about it? What are the steps they have to take? Are there criterias as far as money is concerned? What do they have to do in order to be able to use your service?
Sure. The key things that Head Start, that a parent that wants to come into Head Start, or a family that wants to come into Head Start, they must be age eligible, which again is that 6 weeks to 4 years, as well as income eligible, and we use the federal poverty guidelines for that. And we always use the current year's federal poverty guidelines. And then once they come in, we screen their application. We then score it based on a point scale. And that's where you typically, using the points is where you typically fall on the wait list. And that point system is set up in such a way so that we serve the neediest of the needy first. So if you were to come in the door and you have a host of issues, and I might tell you as a senior case manager, okay, you qualify based off of age and income, of course, and now you're going to be on a wait list. That does not necessarily mean that you fall to the bottom of the wait list. Based
your
on
triage.
Correct, correct. And so based off the need, you may fall, in the first slot or the third slot or the fifth slot or however the case may be. And so that's pretty much how we run our program.
What are we waiting for? Why aren't all these people being taken care of? Is it a matter of funding? Is it a matter of personnel? What is it that we need to do in order to get all of these people taken care of? Because
I would definitely say funding. I mean, we're well funded as we are today, but there's always a huge need. Our wait list is extensive, throughout the entire year.
But if you've got a wait list, then there's a dam there somewhere holding back people from getting the service that they need.
Absolutely. And
how do we lower that dam?
It's
give more people services.
Sure, it's working through our legislators and writing your congressmen, not only on the local level but our U.S. Congress, folks, and letting them know the importance of Head Start, letting them know the good in the services that we do, and also the need that we have here in the community.
I've read where to keep one person in prison per year is about $47,000 per person.
Mm-hmm.
It would seem to me that a better investment on this end, what was that old commercial, pay me now or pay me later?
Sure.
I think Sears or one of them had it.
Right.
And we need to put more time and effort and energy into getting these people served.
Sure, and I definitely agree with that. It would only make our lives as we get older better. If we can bring up the young children in such a way so that they are productive citizens, so that once they hit school age or and actually get out of school, that they know the types of things that they need to look out for, such as going to college or, learning a trade and then learning how to, navigate the workforce and that type of thing.
Daryl, the people that come back, how do you use them? And I guess the second part of that question is, and we haven't talked about it at all, is what about people with learning disabilities and other physical disabilities? Are they also a part of the program?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll start with the second part first. We work with families who have children with learning disabilities as well as physical disabilities, and approximately 10% of our program is of our slots are filled with those with those types of disabilities. The families that come back, we use them to provide testimonies. And we typically, we have large-scale events to where we'll bring these families back and, again, provide testimonies back to the community and also back to the families and children that we serve. However, we also use them in our special projects. Again, it's in our program, it's an each one teach one type of deal, and an identity type deal. And so again, if families can look at somebody that's literally gone through our program, it makes it a lot easier, for them to, again, move along, through our system.
So people looking to become a part of this program can go either call a phone number they'll see on the screen.
That's correct.
Or they can go to the website.
That's correct.
And what if somebody hadn't been a part of the program ever before? Maybe they're an ex-teacher, maybe they're just somebody who retired, has got a little time and loves kids.
Sure.
Can these people volunteer and help you?
Absolutely. Our program is open up to the entire community. Since we're funded by the government, again, we're open up to all of our citizens. Anybody can come in and volunteer. They would just call our number, 813-272-5140, and ask about volunteering, and then we would be more than happy to get them set up.
Well, I think there are a lot of good people out there who would do something to help you.
Sure.
I know that since the women's prison is closing down and phasing out, there are a lot of volunteers there who did a lot of good work. Well, I bet you could work with your program, and I would challenge all of you out there that listen to me and we're a part of that program, give Head Start a look. Daryl, I have to thank you so much for coming in and being a part of this program. It was really great to hear from you. I still think there's a whole lot more of Head Start to be heard from than what we got into our 30 minutes today.
Sure.
You're unique, you're special, you're great. Tell yourself so often because you are, I'm Bill Hodges. This is Spotlight on Government. And we've had Daryl Clark, part of the Head Start program, with us today, and I really appreciate your being here. Please tell your people they're welcome to come on the air whenever they have a special project they want to show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
From Tampa Bay Community Network, we'll see you next time.
Susan, why should I volunteer to do other people's taxes?
You'll help hard-working Hillsborough residents get all the tax credits they're entitled to, and you'll learn a valuable new skill.
What's the time commitment?
You could be a tax preparer, a greeter, or an interpreter at 30 convenient locations in only 2 to 4 hours a week.
Sounds like a great opportunity. Where do I sign up?
UnitedWayTampaBay.org. Volunteer to be a tax preparer. We need you too.